We're here to talk about BioShock Infinite, Burial at Sea, Episode 1, and you're watching Connected Digital World.
Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what your role is?
Sure, my name is Don Roy, and I'm a producer on Burial at Sea.
Right. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Burial at Sea?
Yeah, so what we set out to do is take familiar characters, Booker and Elizabeth, and introduce them fully into the world of Rapture. And what that meant was recreating Rapture from the ground up. So it's taking the lessons that we learned on Infinite and creating fully realized, brand new Rapture that is before the fall, so that it's living and it's breathing, and people are living their lives and creating stunning visuals so people can explore that world with Booker and Elizabeth. We also take the opportunity to introduce people back to familiar friends, big daddies, little sisters, and others. We also were able to rebalance and rework combat from Infinite so that it fit better in the world of Rapture. So we ended up with a really nice balance of Infinite systems with familiar BioShock gameplay. So they set up combats, set up and trigger things like traps and be able to get the jump on enemies and close quarter combat. A little bit of starvation model where you really have to balance your resources, and then that also introduces the ability to have a little bit more stealth as well and work your way and make good choices through the level. So we worked really hard to try and incorporate all those things into this DLC.
Was there any doubt that you were ever going to go back to Rapture, or was there a couple of options you had and you just sort of went, actually no, Rapture's good?
We hadn't, so we were so heads down on Infinite, we were completely dedicated to that, and when it was done, the conversation started about DLC, and we realized very quickly that we were going to put all of our resources into it and really try to tell a complete narrative thought in something memorable. And we definitely bantered around about different things, but there were two main things that drew us back to Rapture. One was, can we create a living world in the vein of Town Center, but do it in Rapture and show people what the idealized version of Rapture was? And the other was, can we tell an interesting, complete story that allows both to touch? And in those two things, we couldn't walk away from. It was too good to be able to do that. Huge challenge, and as we've been working through both of them, they've introduced interesting new challenges and things we had to work through. But I think the ultimate result is going to be very, very impressive, and it's our love letter to the fans, because we truly love our fans. We love the support that we've gotten over the years, and this is our ability to be able to really give them something we think is what they want.
Oh, I think they're going to like it. Do you want to tell us time period it's set and why you chose that particular time period?
Sure. It's set on the eve of the fall of Rapture, so New Year's Eve, which is to fans will know it's a very iconic time frame. I can't really delve more into why it's set exactly on that date, but it's definitely set. It's set in a very important time in Rapture's history, and you're going to be playing as Booker, and Elizabeth will be your companion through the journey of Burial at Sea, and so you're going to be able to see the world again through their eyes and their interactions.
So, in this, it's Booker's from this particular world, but Elizabeth isn't. Which world is Elizabeth from? Is she from the BioShock Infinite world, or is she from one of the other parallel worlds? Or would you prefer not to answer that question?
Can't give any spoilers yet, but they definitely both have a purpose for being in Rapture. There's no question.
Elizabeth seems a lot more confident in Burial at Sea. And again, I'm assuming that's because of, as you say, the reason she's there and what she's got to do. Were you concerned that you were going to sort of trivialise Elizabeth or make her too strong? Were you trying to find the right balance?
Yeah, I think there's balance there, but honestly, I think we were very excited about her taking this journey because it's an extension of her growth from Infinite. So she starts out in the tower, and her existence becomes completely colored by the violence interactions that she has with violence in Infinite until her ultimate ascension to what she becomes at the end of Infinite. And so she is that person. So you come into this story, she's colored and grown from all of those experiences. So it makes sense that she is who she is. And then she has a purpose in which, no spoilers, but she has a purpose. And so it's I think people will realize as they play through that it makes sense for her to be who she is.
And there's at least one character in part 1 that knows that she's not who she claims to be.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that we're going to see more of that as the parts come out.
I would say that to safe bet, yes.
So there's also new vigors, or as they're called in this, plasmids.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the new ones?
Sure. So we introduced Old Man Winter in Burial at Sea, and there's a great story behind Old Man Winter. And I love it particularly because I was the one who actually got to reach out to the fan. But shortly after we started DLC or Burial at Sea, part 1, we realized that we wanted to introduce a new vigor, and we wanted, or plasmid, and we wanted it to be similar to something that was in Bio 1. And doing the ice plasmid made a lot of sense. It just needed to have some different functionality, so we didn't want to call it the same thing. And at that time, serendipitously, an image shows up, a piece of fan art that looks like it could have been generated from our studio and was hugely enticing. And it's just this amazing bottle, and you're like, I want that bottle. And so yeah, we reached out and asked the fan if he'd be interested in allowing us to utilize it. We couldn't tell him at the time we were using it for, but we incorporated the bottle and took his signage and modified it just a little bit, and it showed up in game, and so now we have an ice figure or ice plasmid. This is what happens when you live between two different worlds. Ice plasmid that is based off a fan concept, which is huge for us because it's. Fans have given so much to us, and to be able to incorporate them into what we do is a pretty big win.
So BioShock Infinite, I think a lot of people will agree, is probably their game of the year so far. Certainly very, very popular. And a lot of people played it, enjoyed it, who hadn't played the previous BioShock games. So how will that affect people playing Burial at Sea, being set in Rapture, or is it just, you're not going to miss anything, you're not going to lose out if you haven't played the earliest?
I think inherently there's a lot of inside baseball, we like to call it. Like, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's there for diehard fans. Like I said, this is our love letter to the fans, so we're playing it heavily that way. So it could be tough in some angles, but it is its own complete narrative and story, so you can play it on its own and be able to enjoy it very much. I think you'll just get more if you play the others.
Certainly part 1, which I've just played, is very dark, and I mean really dark. Are you guys a little concerned that maybe you've gone too dark, or is that you've done it for a particular reason?
We've definitely done it for a particular reason, and I think it's exactly the story that's necessary for episode 1. And we'll see where it goes from there. But I think we leave you right where we need to.
And obviously, again, I won't spoil BioShock Infinite's ending for those who haven't seen it, but it was one of those endings that you sat back and you thought, what? And you wanted to discuss it with people, and you had to sort of say, have you finished yet? No. I can't talk to you about it. What's your interpretation of the ending? Because everyone seems to have a slightly different, I think it means this, or I think it means that. So what are you?
I'd love to know what you think first, and I can jump off that.
Oh, I've got 15 different interpretations. I mean, and every single one of them will be wrong. But
I think what I'm comfortable saying is that one of the things that drew me to Irrational Games was there, at least through BioShock, the original Bio, and seeing the stories they were telling, there's a common theme of when you have an idea and what happens to it when you take it too far. And that resonated with me because that's life. Like, how many examples could we pull out of history that are a very similar thing, where there's something that was thought of as a good idea and gets taken to an extreme until it becomes bad. And that fascinates me because it can go a lot of different directions, but ultimately there seems to be a very similar conclusion. And I'm also a very moral person, and I like to try and live my life as a good person. And it not often does good always win out, and there's a lot of gray in the world. And so I like the idea of seeing that type of history play out, and then there being a conclusion to it, and that there being closure, and watching that journey was the most important thing for me. And as a player of Infinite, after we shipped, and sitting down and playing it all the way through again as a player, was getting all of those elements, and seeing that there was a morality play there that played out, and you got to see a conclusion of it. Was the thing that stuck with me the most, honestly.
So that's a really good answer, but without answering the question. And I think the best thing to suggest is for people to go and play it and make their own interpretation.
I think so, because I think that there is, like, it's we do a lot of things a bit open-ended to a degree, where people can have their own interpretation of things, and I think it's important because that's how you end up with fan fiction, and I think people with real love of a creative entity is when there's enough room for them to make it their own. I think it certainly happened with Star Wars, and it's happened with a number of different creative licenses, where when you leave enough room for interpretation, there's a lot of value there.
And for part 2, which I know you're not going to talk anything about.
Except for that Liz is a playable character.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you.
I'll give you that.
Is she pretty much the only character you play in part 2, or is she a part of part 2's playable character?
All we're saying is that Liz is a playable character.
So close to get some information out of you. Great. Thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.